Welcome to Quarterlight, your car brochure channel, and in today's episode, the Morris Ital. Welcome back, and Quarterlight, if you don't know it, we're a very small channel here on YouTube looking at car brochures from many different decades. We tend to mainly look at sort of 70s, 80s, 90s, although we do go earlier than that as well. But in today's episode, we're going to look at the Morris Ital. Now, the Morris Ital was a successor of the Morris Marina and was launched and built by British Leyland between 1980 and 1984. Today's brochure is actually from early 1982. So if you think that might interest you, please consider subscribing. Anyway, let's have a look at today's brochure. So here we go, today's brochure, clearly stating it's the 1982 model year for the Morris Ital, sort of like midway through production, I guess. I suppose we should mention that Ital name, where it came from. Well, it was called Ital because of Giugiaro's Ital Design Studio, who weirdly didn't design it. So that was a bit of a strange one, although I think they did do a bit of consulting work, but the design was clearly a Harris Mann design. Well, I don't suppose you can call it the Morris Harris Mann. Doesn't sound the same, does it? So let's call it after a design studio that didn't design the car. That's a very much a British Leyland way of thinking. It was very obviously, though, a facelift to the Series 2 Marina. I don't think they was really fooling anyone, but I don't think they were really trying to fool anyone, really, were they? Same sort of thing, really, isn't it? It's not a huge thing. And the Ital was really there as a stopgap until we got a new model proper, which eventually was the Montego. But anyway, let's have a look through the brochure. Here we have this lovely image showing all the models. So at this stage we had the L, HL, HLS, and of course the Estates similarly spec'd. Now we can see that this is actually an early 82 brochure, because later in 82, I think around about September, they changed them trim levels, so they no longer did the L, HL, HLS. We might as well just have a quick look at what they became. So this one is actually from 1983, when they did play around with the trim levels. And then we got the SL, the SLX. Still had that weird dashboard with the radio pointing the wrong way, but I'm sure I'll mention that many times through this video. And of course the Estates as well. So they did have a bit of a play around with the models, but this particular, the main brochure we're looking at today, is before they did that, and they had the L, HL, HLS. I think the biggest thing about the HLS is this nice vinyl roof, isn't it? Anyway, let's open the brochure further. Okay, and when I say we'll open this brochure, it's a bit of a surprising brochure. It reminds me more of brochures from the 60s than from the 80s, in that the brochure opens up into this sort of like poster style. So I'll have to set the camera up to see that a little bit better, the way I usually present 60s brochure, but that's unusual for an 80s brochure to be designed like that. And then when I move the camera back, we can see it a little bit better. Huge, if we can give you a little bit of an idea how that big that is. Showing the different models, the L, HL, HLS, and then the estate versions. So let's get the camera looking at the L, and we'll have a look at some of the spec levels for each trim. So starting right at the top here with the Ital L, the base model, and it's telling us we've got inertia, real seat belts, new centre console with clock, new reclining seats, wax injected box sections, new PVC underbody protection, as I just knocked the camera. Full depth upholstery door castings, new full width fabric seat facings, and a heated rear window. The surprising thing with the Ital is when it was launched, it still had the 1.3 litre, it still had the 1.7 from the Marina. It was still, quite an antiquated rear wheel drive design, and as we'll look, the interiors were carried over from the Series 2 Marina as well, which was interesting because the interior on the Series 2 Marina was I think the bit I really couldn't get over, which we'll have a look at a few different times, which is why I always preferred the earlier Marinas. But they decided to carry this, in my view, poorly designed dashboard over to the Ital for whatever reason. It's British Leyland, so it's going to be money saving, of course. And we can see these little pictures here showing the seat belts, the little gear lever with that clock in it, a little bit of adjustment on the seats, and some guy injecting wax into the box section. Seats quite plain, no headrests, as you wouldn't expect at this time, and the interior picture, and like I said, the part I really don't like and I could never get over with the Marina, same with the Ital, this radio pointing the wrong way, so you can't really see it as the driver, it's pointing to the passenger, which I really don't understand that design of that at all. But anyway, let's have a look at the HL. So the HL, new wide black corch tape, so we've got a bit of a stripe on it to mark it as the HL. New black window trims, new black bumpers, new wheel trims, new fashionable tweed upholstery, new front door bins, centre console with clock, push button radio. So it doesn't really sound like you get too much more from the base model. Interior trim is a little bit nicer, I guess, than that base model, and sort of more little images of door pockets, steering wheels, that wheel trim, and that radio which pointed the wrong way. Let's move on to the HLS. So the HLS gives us a really good look at that dashboard and really shows that radio points the wrong way. Seats look a lot nicer though, don't they? We've now got head restraints on there. We've now got a centre armrest, all the plushness. Ribbed and plain velour seat trim, front seat head restraints, tinted glass, passenger door mirror. Oh, we've got a passenger door mirror as well now. We're really moving up in the world. I have to admit though, that seat colour is really fabulous, isn't it? It says, every Morris Ital has crisp, modern styling and a quiet, comfortable and roomy interior, but the HLS model offers many special benefits that emphasise their top specification status. Distinguished exterior features of the HLS trim level include bright horizontal borders to the front grille, broad ledge wheel embellishers, protective side rubbing strips, and a fully tailored vinyl roof on the saloons. And I think the vinyl roof really made them a lot better actually. Inside, the luxury treatment is even more emphatic, with sumptuous, deeply cushioned seating, fully trimmed and ribbed and plain velour fabric. Saloons have rear folding centre armrests, and the luxury aura is enhanced by fabric covering main door castings. Wow, they're really trying to make this out to be quite the car, don't they? Great little bit of writing from the brochure designer for sure. Features taken for granted on any HLS model include a push-button radio, electric tachometer, intermittent wiper facility and nighttime illumination of switchgear, heater controls, glove locker and boot, typifying the attention to detail in the extensive list of HLS equipment is the inclusion of warning lights for choke and handbrake. Because Morris believe in wide customer choice, there are HLS versions of the 1.3, 1.7 and 2 litre auto saloons of the 1.7 and 2 litre auto estate cars. Now, like I said at the start, the 1.3, 1.7 was carried over when they first launched the Ital. October 1980, they brought out the 2 litre all-series engine. The interesting thing though, the 2 litre HLS only ever sold 2,000 of them. That's a very low number, isn't it? 2,000. So I guess that's the one for the collector really. I wonder how many of those 2 litre HLSs are still around today. Anyway, let's have a look at the Ital estates. So the estate's quite practical big estates, although it looks like no split folding seats. We've got a bit of wheel arch intrusion and we've even got the spare wheel in there as well, but still quite a practical estate car. It says carpeted load space lamp, 31.4 storage space with rear seat in position. Obviously more when them seats are folded down. Rear window wash wipe, heated rear window, reversing lamps, rear fog guard lamp. And as they often did at the time, you can see the fog lights just been tacked on as a bit of a afterthought. Kind of feel the same about the reversing lights as well though in this case. And there it is with those seats folded down. Here it is with the tailgate down. I always thought they were quite attractive actually, the Itals from the rear, the estate versions. They're more attractive I think than the saloons in my opinion anyway, whatever that means. Here is the HL model, so that's a 1.7 HL. Here is another image of the HL with the boot up. And then surprisingly this is the base model L in brown, the colour you wanted, with a brown, and it looks better actually, doesn't it? It's got a two-tone interior, the L. I think the L looks better than the HL there with that separate colour at the top there, but there you go. Obviously brown is the colour you really wanted. The top ones incidentally, they are the HLS spec. It's that very nice sort of orangey interior. And then we fold the brochure back and then look on the back page, we get the specifications. Again, very similar to a 60s brochure, surprisingly. So the specifications, we'll zoom in on the specifications and look at them in a bit more detail. So it starts by looking at the 1.3, which could be the L, HL or HLS. And that's a 1275 A+ petrol engine. More details there, and you can always pause this screen if you do want to look into the details of that specifications, but obviously we don't have time to go through it all now. It's a 4-speed synchromesh gearbox, synchromesh on all gears, rear wheel drive. What else have we got? Brakes, front disc, rear drums. Wheels and tyres, different specifications depending on if you get the L, HL or HLS by the looks of it. Electrical system, again, different specifications depending on which specification you get. It's unusually how it's laid out, these specifications. It's not one of the better brochures in the specifications, in that they've tried to do the 1.3 L, HL, HLS all in one, so yeah, it's the same engine but all the specifications are different, so they're having to write and rewrite. It's a good job there isn't a lot of specifications on there, because I think they would have failed. It continues with the instruments telling you the different specs and different equipment on the different levels of the 1.3, and with the coach work as well. So like I say, if you do want to read all this, please pause the screen. Optional extras, they're always an interesting thing to look at. Auto transmission is the big optional extra on your HLS. And then when we go to the top here, it gives you the dimensions, and then it talks about the 1.3L estate. And it moves on to the 1.7L, 1.7HL and 1.7HLS. Continues by saying as described for the 1.3 models. This is an O series engine. Like I said, I don't know why they didn't just talk about the engines first and then talk about the specifications. It seems a weird way of doing it, but nevertheless, the 1.7 had the same 4-speed gearbox. Like so, and then it just says specs as described on the 1.7 saloon, and it talks about the 2-litre HLS saloon and estate. The rare one, of course, is that 2-litre HLS, where very few were actually made, but a very confusing way of describing this particular brochure. The 2-litre was a 1994cc engine, and that was the later one as well, wasn't it? A few little notes on there. Always nice to see that British Leyland little badge, and always nice to see the word Morris. Obviously that's kind of got lost. We do have mile per gallon figures there as well. I wouldn't say anything out of the ordinary. They weren't terrible, they weren't great, were they, at the same time? Super cover, very much a British Leyland thing. And for those who are interested, this one is publication number 3550. But that is today's brush. But like I say, I always preferred the original Marina, to be honest with you. Mainly because of that interior that went a bit weird, didn't it? But if we look at the Marina's interior of old, it's quite a nice little place to be. I think I much prefer these early ones, but nevertheless, progress is progress, and I know a lot of people prefer the later Marinas, and a lot of people got a soft spot for the Ital as well. If you have an Ital, you have to have it in brown though, don't you? And I did like that very basic L model. The collector, of course, would want that 2-litre HLS. I'm waffling on her. Let's wrap this up. So there we go, that is the end of today's brochure review with the Morris Ital from 1982. If you got any memories or thoughts about the Morris Ital, always love reading those, so please do that. I read every one. But for now, we'll say please do like and subscribe, and do take care. Enjoy the rest of the week. We'll be back very soon. So for now, we'll say take care and goodbye.